away and it started again. So this is a really painful and painstaking process. And as you can see, it's going to take an awful long time for all of this debris to be cleared away. And you can hear in the background maybe the sounds of saws as they're cutting some of the metal girders as well. Now the rain today, Marty mentioned that just a moment ago, it made things, I think, somewhat difficult, although that video was taken during the rain. And so it made things difficult, it made it messy, but the workers there are determined to keep going. And so that is what they have done the entire day, even during the president's visit. Wolf?
Brian, tell us precisely where you are so our viewers who are familiar with Manhattan can get a better sense how close you are to the destruction.
Well, I'm at the corner of Greenwich and I think it is Reed Street, Harrison Street. And we are about 10 blocks from the destruction, and you can see it behind my shoulder when the smoke clears. Now that smoke is resurged all day long, even after the rain. But that's where it is. We can see it right behind us. And you've got a rooftop shot, and you've got this shot from the ground. It's absolutely stunning when you see it from the street level. That to me, is the most shocking. To see how high that rubble is, and to think of how long it's going to take to clear that away, and to think of all the people who have come here. I just talked to a gentleman here who is from a local community college in New Rochelle. And he said he got together with some of his colleagues, and they put the pressure and the finger on some of the suppliers to the college, and they put together 2 trucks of supplies. Their shovels, their ropes, their gloves, their anything they can find. And they came down here to deliver it. There is such unity and determination here as Americans to get this mess cleared away and to get life as it was back to normal down here in South Manhattan.
You're right near ground zero over there, and I'm sure, Brian, you've been speaking to a lot of people. Tell us about what they're saying, their mood on this day.
Well, you know, interesting. The day began with an encounter with a policeman. That policeman came up to us, you know, and I guess you describe it in a somewhat belligerent way. And he said, you know, that SOB is watching you. Now, he's referring to them, of course, but he tended to personify the people behind this as a single person. And he said, he's watching you. And I said, yes, I know, he's watching all of us. And his word to me was, you just tell him, we'll get him. And he was, I mean, this is utter anger coming out of this man. And then I talked to a fire chief named Ronald Crome. He's from Westchester County. Now, this fire chief was working on his own time today. He came down here at 7 o'clock this morning. I met him at about 3 this afternoon when he was leaving. He was going back to work. He was going to go and do his regular shift as a fire chief, a deputy fire chief in Connecticut. Now, I'm sorry, in Westchester County, which is Connecticut, I'm sorry. What he said to me was that the hardest thing was pulling out some of his colleagues, and by that he meant other firemen. Now, these colleagues are New York firemen, but they are the most closely bonded group. Firemen in this entire area are closely bonded, and they all consider themselves brothers. And at this point, he began to well up in tears, and he couldn't talk. It was an absolutely moving moment.
Brian Nelson in Lower Manhattan, thank you very much. Just one note, you did point out Westchester County is in New York, not in Connecticut. We all know that. I know that because I have relatives who live in Westchester County. In any case, Joey, let's go back to you.
Wolf, now we want to get more information on the search for whoever is responsible behind these horrible things that we have seen. Joining us now, Mike Boettcher, who's been following up on the investigation. Mike, investigators looking into this know more now about those they think are responsible.
And they shared some of it with us today, Joey. They released 2 lists today. One of the living, that included 100 people, but it was kept private. And this list of the dead, the hijacked suspects, all 19 of them aboard the 4 aircraft, 3 of them that went into buildings, the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, and the 3rd that crashed into a field near Pittsburgh. You'll notice that many of these people are from Florida. There were 7 pilots in there. 3 of them are from the New York, New Jersey area. They list that as their address. 17 lived in the United States. The other 2 came from overseas. And we have been developing more information on each one of these people. But what we would like to do is take a look at Mohammed Atta, who was on board one of those aircrafts, the American Airlines aircraft, that goes from, I'm trying to get the flight number right now. Mohammed Atta was on American Flight 11 from Boston to Los Angeles. And we have put together a roadmap of his travels, and it shows the international nature of the travels of Mohammed Atta. He started out in Hamburg, Germany, where he traveled and lived in the 1990s. And then from there, in May of 2000, he ended up in Venice, Florida, and he took a flight training class there. In December of 2000, he was at Coral Springs. That's where we pick him up there. He rented an apartment while he was living in that part of Florida. Then in December of 2000, Opa-locka, he was at the Sim Center in Opa-locka, Florida. Now the Sim Center instructor says that Mohammed Atta and two other people came there and they wanted to take simulator time in a 727. And he said the odd thing was they weren't interested in takeoffs and landings. They were more interested in how to make turns in a jetliner. Then in February of 2001, we pick him up again in Hamburg, Germany. German police the last 2 days have been going to apartments that have been lived in by Mohammed Atta. According to German authorities, they've been looking at clues there. So he returned there for some reason. And then in August 2001, he came back to Pompano Beach, Florida, where he rented a car at an agency called Warwick. And Warwick Rental Car said they rented him 2 cars over the period of about 30 days. And in the last 2 weeks, the second car that he rented, in about 2 weeks, he put 3,000 miles on that car, which would take him up and down the eastern seaboard if he would have wanted to. So that was an extraordinary amount of mileage. Then last week, we pick up the trail of Mohammed Atta in Palm Beach County. And there he went to a flight center and asked to take 3 refresher flights. He said he wanted to practice that he was a pilot. He had the license. So he was there, and that's right before he left for Boston, Massachusetts, where at the Alamo Rental Car Agency, he rented a car and then drove up to Portland, Oregon on the morning of the attack in Portland, Oregon. He left the car there, Portland, Maine. He left the car there, caught a commuter flight to Boston, and then boarded that American Airlines jet that crashed into the World Trade Center.
Mike, we want to follow up on all of this. Now we want to turn to CNN's Bill Delaney, following up on the story from Boston and Logan Airport. Bill, as Mike noted, there has been a path already traced over all these different cities across the world as well. And at Logan and in the Boston area, there is evidence and indication that those involved may have been doing more, making some more inquiries in that area.
Well, many fragments, many strands. Investigators here in the New England region following thousands, really tens of thousands of leads as they try to understand how 10 hijackers hijacked those 2 767s last Tuesday. Now, one intriguing fragment. I'm standing at Eastern Air Charter in Norwood, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, where law enforcement officials and other sources tell us several days before the hijacking, men identified as Middle Eastern types were here at Eastern Air Charter making inquiries. They wanted to know about chartering a twin-engine jet. They wanted to know about that jet's fuel capacity. They wanted to know how soon they could charter such a jet. Could they do it quickly? And they wanted to know how long it would take to fly to New York. Now, one high law enforcement official I spoke to said to me, Joey, he believed that there was a high possibility, he said, that these were either the hijackers themselves or another team. Now, of course, the FBI hasn't ruled out the possibility that other teams are still at large. Eastern Air Charter officials themselves downplaying all this, but another source told us law enforcement authorities have been here, he said, tearing the place apart. A couple of other strands of many here. The Portland Press Herald reporting today that in Portland, Maine, one of the hijackers it is reported, had lived for at least a year and may have had a relationship, in fact, with a local woman. Amid other reports from many sources today, FBI sources, that the planning for all this, of course, took many, many years. Back to you, Jody.
CNN's Bill Delaney following up with more parts of the investigation up in Boston. Thanks very much, Bill. I want to move back to the human side of the story because there has been so much emotion on the streets of New York City. You saw it beginning really yesterday. We saw the great flush of emotion as all those people who are looking for all those missing loved ones from the World Trade Center area still wandering the streets of New York trying to find some way, some evidence of where their missing loved one has gone. CNN's Elizabeth Cohen has been following the scene out there at the New York Armory, and she rejoins us now. Elizabeth.
Hello, that's right. I'm here at the New York Armory. We do not know if President Bush is coming, but if he wanted to talk to the families of people who are missing their loved ones, this is where he would come. This is where the families come to register information about their loved ones. Governor Pataki was here yesterday, was hugging people. He had tears in their eyes. He talked to them at length. His wife was here this morning inside the Armory and spoke to people and told them if you need financial help, you can apply for it here to help meet your mortgage this month or to help do whatever it is that you need to do. When people come into the Armory, there is help for them. There are counselors. They register information about their loved one. They're then shown two lists. They're shown a list of people who've been found in the hospital, and then they're shown a list of people who the authorities know are deceased. This woman right here Audrey has just been at the Armory. She's looking for her nephew, Damian Moat. Can you tell me about your nephew? The last person who saw him was his girlfriend, right?
Last person that saw him was his girlfriend, Samantha. They came down on the subway together, and he left for work. You got to be at work by 7 o'clock that morning, and she went to school.
And tell me, you're distributing these posters. What do you hope will happen with these posters?
Well, I'm hoping somebody will see him somewhere where he can identify himself, and would call any of these numbers here. So, because I know he's out there somewhere.
It's been almost 3 days now, and I know people were full of hope the first day, full of hope the second. Are you full of as much?
I'm just as much as full of hope as day number one. He's out there.
What keeps you going? Is it your faith?
My faith, hoping, and my family and friends.
And his parents must just be distraught.
They are very. They're here today with me, but they don't want to come in camera.
I can understand that, of course. Tell me about Damien. We can see he's a very good-looking guy.
Tell me. He's a very good boy. He's a very good person. He's not the kind of person that is into company. He's more into work. He's a home person.
When you went inside the Armory, were they able to tell you anything?
They weren't able to tell me anything, but we gave them all the information that we had that they wanted us to give to them. So we did that, and they sent us downstairs to check a list. He wasn't on that list. So they gave us a website number for us to keep checking, and they said they'll call us as soon as they get any information.
Was it well organized? Were they supportive?
They were very supportive. They even have counselors that came over trying to talk to us, but what we needed really was for some information how to get help for the kids that we have at home that are taking this very, very hard.
There are children in your family?
Yes.
And how are they responding to?
Not well, especially his younger brothers. He got 2 younger brothers, 18 and 10. They're not doing too well, so we need some kind of counseling for them.
I can imagine. Tell me what you'll be doing once you leave here. Where else will you go?
Well, we were on our way down to St. Vincent, and then we're going to go to that support group at the Pier Hotel because he worked with Cantor Fitzgerald, and they have like a support group up there, so we were going up there.
So that's a support group for people who work for Cantor Fitzgerald with the financial group. I've seen so many of these posters say Cantor Fitzgerald on them, one after another. It must be devastating, so many people from one company.
Yes, so many people from one company, and most of them are up there at the Pier Hotel. It's like a support group, and we feel better when we are among people who are going through the same thing that we are going through.
And has the company been helpful
Well, they've been helpful with the information that they've been giving us, because so far they're They gave us numbers and stuff and places where to go and, you know, counselors